Hi guys, it's Teddy. I had a really great retreat workshop this last weekend, and out of that quiet time and that personal work I did, I'm starting to develop a muscle for noticing the stories I'm telling myself about relationships and events that as they're occurring and as I'm making judgments about other people, as I'm making judgments about myself, as I'm making judgments about what's happening in front of me, I can actually catch myself some of the time and see the story I'm telling to myself about it. So here's a really small example. Is at the end of the weekend, it was Sunday afternoon, and turned the phone back on, and I was scheduling a couple calls for the week, and I'd scheduled a call with a friend for Monday, and I noticed I was actually afraid, or I was telling myself, I'm having a little bit of fear around this call. Like, what's the fear about? But the truth is, here's the facts. The facts is, in my stomach, I was feeling like butterflies, like fluttery, maybe a little bit of tension in my stomach. And what I caught myself is in the moment is like, oh, that's fear. Why am I afraid of the call? Why does this fear come up all the time? And blah, blah, blah. Boom, stop. Wait a minute. I'm feeling fluttery in my stomach. I'm feeling a little bit of tension in my stomach, period. That's the facts. And then in addition, I have been layering a story on top of it. And the story is, oh, that's fear. I must be afraid of that phone call. But there's other stories I could layer. Like, what if I told the story, wow, I'm having bubbling excitement. I'm enthusiastic about this call with this person. This phone call, who knows what the possibility of this phone call is? I haven't talked to this person in a while, and I'm really looking forward to this. Well, what about that story? And is that story any more or less true than the story that, oh, I'm experiencing that fear again. A lot of times when I get on the phone with people, blah, 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 that story is not true. It's just the story I'm used to or the story I'm comfortable with. Another example is I noticed I was holding on to an old relationship, that there was some heartbreak, and this has been several years ago now, that there was still some residual heartbreak in my body that sometimes I would feel, like if a song came up or some kind of memory of it. And that I took a look at that again this weekend. It popped up in my mind and in my body. And I noticed that when I tell the story about this old relationship, the story as I tell is there was a lot of the dynamic it was subtle, but it was kind of like power and control issues. And I was like, oh, that person was doing power and control and manipulating me. That's the story I was telling. And here was this heartbreak. And how come I can't get rid of this residual heartbreak? And how come I haven't completely washed myself clean of that old relationship? And I had this brilliant aha moment during the weekend. And the brilliant aha moment was, wait a minute. If that person was doing power and control and subtle manipulation with me, by definition, doesn't that mean I was doing power and control with that person? Like my dad always used to say, it takes two to tango. Anyways, in that moment, I turned it around, the judgment, the analysis. I turned the story around. It's like, wait a minute. I was doing power and control with that person. I was manipulating that person. And it's subtle. It might not have been easy to see and might not have been blatant, but it was there. We were both doing power and control with each other. And in that moment, boom, that residual feeling in my body that I called heartbreak or whatever it was I was hanging on to, it just vanished. Because for a moment, I got to tell myself the truth. And the truth was that I was doing power and control with that person. And even though I had this great story about how they were doing it to me and blah, 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 so wait a minute, I was doing it with them. And so in the moment of me telling the truth, that message from my body, what I was calling a heartbreak, that message from my body, I finally listened to it, and I finally took the opportunity to tell the truth about it. And in my, what is truth, right? What is truth? What I mean by telling the truth about it, I took the opposite side of it. I looked at it from the opposite direction, and I gave myself a more empowering story. It's like, what's What's more empowering to say, blah, 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 they did this and they did that and I'm a victim and blah, 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 you wouldn't believe what they did to me? And what's more powerful, that little victim-y story, or, oh, I see, I was running the show, I was doing this to them, and even more importantly is I was doing this to me. And so that message that's been hanging out my body, that little what I call heartbreak or whatever that feeling was, I finally got the message is, oh, I see. I've been real good at blaming them and shaming them and they're guilty, and all of a sudden I got to take responsibility. So where am I going with all this? I'm just trying to share with you a couple little examples of what I got out of this weekend. And I've really had this amazing week as I'm starting to see the one-sided, narrow stories that I tell myself about everything. Here's what's going on with me with money. Here's what's going on with me in this relationship. Here's what's going on with me in my body. Another great example is this past weekend, I started running again. I'm someone who's run most of my life as a sort of a primary physical exercise. I hadn't run for a year and I started running again, some short runs just to get myself back in shape. And I noticed, well, I knew that if I start running again, it's going to completely change my life because it's so fundamental to me and who I am to be able to do a cardiovascular exercise like that. It's going to change my whole life. But I had a story about, well, I guess I'm not a runner anymore and my leg muscles don't support me. And so I let go of the story and I flipped it and it's like, I'm a runner now. So I'm telling you these three little stories about myself in a way that I hope gives you something. And the something I'm hoping to impart on you is I'm just in this place now where I'm just looking at the stories I tell myself about myself, and I can see them now. I can see some of these stories, and I'm actually able to flip it on myself and tell the opposite or tell a different story and say, well, do I really want to say that this is fear in my stomach? Is it fear? No, it's bubbling enthusiasm, or it's excitement, or it's, I can feel the possibility. Do I really want to say that that person was manipulating me, or do I want to acknowledge that, oh, I see, maybe I was manipulating them, maybe I was in charge of the situation in that relationship the whole time? Or do I really want to tell the story as, oh, I'm not a runner anymore, my legs just won't let me run? Or do I want to tell the story, hey, it's time to run again, it's summertime, let's get the running back on? I hope you got a little something out of that. It's like I'm a kid with a new toy. It's like, wow, I can actually see some of the stories I'm telling myself as I'm telling them to myself, and I actually get to choose whether that's an empowering story or I want to tell another different story, one that might energize me, one that might empower me, one that might give me some options and possibilities in my life that I don't see or haven't seen while I was in the midst of the limited, narrow story I was telling about myself. Anyways, in case you're wondering, and I got to tell you, I'm in Glen Canyon in the middle of San Francisco. And I can only show you some of the rock because this rock's super cool, serpentine rock. And this is like the most wild little spot. And I mean wild as in nature and undeveloped. The wild little spot up above Noe Valley in San Francisco. And I get to come in here and check it out. This used to be my stomping grounds for where I'd come get into shape and back into the climbing season. And it's truly a blessing that I just get to be here. I'm on the way to the airport to pick up my mom. And I get to come check out the rock. Hope you're having a great day. I am. Talk to you later.